Welcome to the Embodiment podcast. This show is for you if you see the body as more than a brain taxi. It's for people interested in coming home to the body as a holistic aspect of who we are and how we live. Episodes contain practical tips, exercises you can take away, and interviews with specialists from around the world. I'm your host for today, Mark Walsh. On the show today, Peter Appel. So Peter is joining us from Finland. He's the founder of Movingness, I'm sure he'll say what that is, yoga teacher from 4 different traditions, dance facilitator, mental trainer, and also writer. So Peter, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Peter, what was the beginning of your story with the body?
I was not that super passive when I was a child, but somehow I slipped away into books. So I was like a serial reader as a kid. Mm-hmm. And then I started to study and I drifted away. So I returned to my body when I was around 35 years of age, mostly through pain.
Uh-huh.
Pain is the greatest teacher of them all.
It's a great motivator.
Yeah. So I started to visit physiotherapists and body practitioners, and I started to support them. I supported the community there for some years before I realized I had to do something myself. So then gradually I came into yoga, and gradually from yoga also into a lot of different traditions, because I felt, I think that's a characteristics of me, that when I go into something, I want to explore, I want to go deeper, I want to learn more. So I felt that the yoga world was good at first, but then I wanted to have more input, different views and different experiences too.
Yoga is a great entrance point for many people, isn't it? And then sometimes there's a sense of like, hey, I want to move more freely, or I want to go into looking at my shadow, or, some other thing opens up from there.
Yeah, for some reason it has become so. The asanas originally they were like you warm up your body for meditation, but later they became so static. I don't really understand why it became so focused on to be in a static pose and to go so deep into it that it often could hurt yourself. That's one of my big question marks when it comes to yoga. I see it more that you need to find an optimal stretch and an optimal point where to be, where your energy flows and where you feel free. So that's my view right now.
And tell me about this movingness. So I saw a really beautiful, simple video of this last night when I was kind of doing a bit of research into you. It looked like very simple awareness-based movement practice, but profound at the same time.
Yeah, it happened by itself, you can say. When had been studying for so many years different traditions, I sort of wanted to be with myself and integrate what I had learned. And then suddenly, when I woke up in the morning, my body could be moving, or wake up in the middle of the night and have some very pleasant, very nice movement going on. And also when I was on my yoga mat, I could sense that the body could take over, and I could find movements I had never done before. And it felt so good in the body to just be moved, not to move. And I started to put them together and try to remember them, and how did I do it? Sometimes I could be very creative. I could make up a lot of movements, and the next day I didn't remember any of them. So it was kind of going into that place and try to bring something out from it.
Yeah, I think there's a nice distinction between mind-body and body-mind, or top-down and bottom-up. Pete Blackwell was talking about on the show of often people start with a form, like a martial art or a yoga, where they're imposing a structure on the body. And then they go, well, hang on a minute, I actually really want to listen to my body and move a bit more freely. And it kind of it switches which one is leading.
Yeah. And I also felt that, when you improvise with your body, one day you can be, anything can happen. And the next day, well, doesn't feel good at all. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
So then I felt that it was good to try to find a compromise where the movement or the position is kind of a starting point, and then you explore from there.
Yeah, I think there's also real dangers in just doing a completely free practice, because people can get lost in that, or they can just kind of marinate in their own bad habits and neuroses. And having a little bit of form and structure, like the 5 rhythms has the 5 rhythms. It's not just jumping around. There's a sense of like, okay, there's a structure here. Like some balance there can be helpful.
Exactly. Because when you start to move according to your sketches, or what you want to call them, the body gets inspired, and the resistance you maybe had in the beginning, it's suddenly totally gone, and you just go into something again. But you sometimes you need a little bit assistance. So I try to find a compromise there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I like this video I saw had 5 steps. Can you talk listeners through those? Because I think they're a beautiful, elegant distillation of a lot of complicated stuff that's out there. And there was something very Finnish about it, sort of stripped down and elegant and beautiful. So I'd love you to talk through those 5 steps.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I actually think we need to start with relaxation and that's for several reasons. First of all, if we are not in relaxation, we talk about relaxation, it's something special, but let's turn it around and say that when we are not in relaxation, we are more or less in a fight or flight mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cannot sense ourselves very good. We can sense the pain, we can sense the discomfort, but gradually it shuts down. It's like this subtle pain is kind of numbing us down. So we don't have this great connection with ourselves. But when you relax, you start to sense yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be a little bit unpleasant too, because you start to sense everything maybe is not as good as I thought. So there's a threshold there in normal relaxation. But here, when we move a little bit at the same time while we relax, it kind of fills the body with a sense of pleasure. You don't have to go into that void of I don't know what to do. Why should I relax? It does not feel good. Instead, you create feeling good at the same time.
Yeah, pleasure's the friend of embodiment, isn't it? Because just Pavlovianly, it motivates us to keep going in there.
Yeah, and we have lots of levels of pleasure that we don't use.
Mm.
If we have like pain in one corner and we have pleasure in the other corner, then we have like the black and white pain and pleasure, and you can feel it with your preferences. But there's a lot of shades of pleasure in between that you can start to sense when you relax and slowly move. So that's opening up to a new world. And then at the same time, I think it also makes it possible for the brain to take in new information.
Yeah, you can listen. You can listen when you're not in that fight-flight mode. I noticed even for this interview, I was kind of rushing to get here. I had an early morning meeting and I was rushing to get here, and I just made it on time. And I kind of went, hang on a minute, Mark, you need to relax now, because otherwise you're not going to be able to connect with this Peter guy. Like for the sake of listening, I was like, I need to tune in a little bit here.
Yeah, that's a great experience, because it shows so clearly that when we go too fast, we disconnect.
Well, I think this is a very Finnish theme, if I may bring culture in a little bit. You're our first Finnish guest, and I've had a very close Finnish student for a few years and worked there just once, and it was the slowest country I've ever been in. And I remember this one experience. I'm in this sauna and no one's speaking at all, and you're in this deep, dark bear cave of a sauna. And when I taught, I'd ask a question, and it might be 3 or 4 seconds before anyone raised their hand, which doesn't sound like long, but just count that out as a teacher. And it wasn't that people were stupid. It's one of the most highly educated countries I've been to too, like super clever people, but slow as shit, man. Like I never seen such a slow country. And this real benefits to that.
Yeah, I think we have something to teach the world when it comes to slowness and when it comes to silence. But I also think we have stuff to learn, because it's also good to be able to express yourself and to get the speed up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I think both are valuable embodiments. And I certainly, from Israel and the United States, learned the kind of speediness and the kind of putting oneself forward that's sometimes missing in the Nordic countries. Finland's Nordic, but not Scandinavian, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Got it.
Yeah.
So say a bit more about Finnish embodiment, because you guys are beautifully weird, and I feel like most of the world doesn't know about Finland. So I'd love to hear a bit more about the Finnish embodied way of this depth and slowness and silence.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself this morning, I'm going to take a turn now.
Yeah.
About sports, because I mean, sports is kind of the most useless thing in the world, but it's kind of the only useless thing we accept in modern society.
Yeah.
Example, now when the Premier League is over, what do you do in football? You have a field with you have a square hole in one end, and then you have a square hole in the other end. And then the point is to get a round thing into a square hole. That's the whole point. So it's totally meaningless, but it's kind of fun anyway.
Yeah.
But if you look at the original situation, it might have been a play situation. If you go to back to tribal society, or it could have been a conflict. So then you codify it and make a sport of it, and you have like a representation of the original situation.
Yes, it's not free play and it's not war, but it's some sort of symbolized or structured version of both of those things. And I think this is really worth underlining. We live in a world that wants everything to be efficient and have a point and a purpose. And there's something quite pointless about kicking a ball around, or, whatever the sport is. And in a way, that's wonderful, right? Like, that's the play of children, to do something. One definition of play is non-goal directed connecting activity.
Yeah, you could take away the goals and see how the play would develop from there. That would be one future for football. But then the players on the field, they are still using their bodies. So they are still embodied in the play. But then you take the next step to the audience. They're just watching, even though you can sense what's happening in your body also when you're watching. You tense yourself and then you relax, and then you tense yourself and you relax. So it's kind of a progressive relaxation, you could say. And then you have like the next representation. If you watch it on television, then you're further away from what's happening.
Uh-huh.
Or if you read the match report in a newspaper afterwards, or like I have been doing this winter, when they're playing BBC and other news outlets, they have these small snippets that they publish every 3rd minute or so, when they say, well, now he was there and that was a huge thing what he did, and he shot the ball in the upper right corner. It's about that. So then we are quite far away from the original situation in the tribe and also on the field.
Yeah. So there's this embodied kind of theatre that's happening, really, which, like theatre, can help people kind of work through their own emotions and access emotions they struggle with. It's one of the few places the repressed British man will show quite strong emotion, for example, is the football match. It's tribal. There's people like wearing tribal colours or chanting or clapping together. So there's this kind of ancient sort of tribal connections that are there. And in a way that it's vicarious in one way is great, because you don't have the danger of being in the war yourself. It's like a great movie. But on the other hand, there's this risk of kind of living through others or becoming so disconnected for it. It's just, you're not really involved in it on an embodied level.
Yeah, and what fascinated me this winter was that I could sense kind of an excitement following these snippets of texts about football players I had not even seen. I don't know what color they are, what height they are, how fast they are. I just followed it like some kind of representation.
Mm-hmm.
So I, and this is how I think we like build society today, with a lot of layers of representations where we have some sort of sense of what's going on. Can be many steps there in between, but we somehow feel connected in at least a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But it's not like the real experience. It's quite thin in the end.
It's porn, not sex, right?
Yeah,
and that's real different.
it's different. And to bring that back to Finland, I think that a country that's a little bit off the road, off country, maybe has a little bit less of these representations, and in that way maybe more some connections. Just like I think that many tribal societies have more of this direct experience of things.
Mm-hmm.
So to take another experience example, like our sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that's the sense we almost totally have lost.
Well, it's difficult to someone can listen to a YouTube video and they can have a visual sense, they can have a auditory sense, but there's no smell or vision.
Yeah. And I saw a report from a hunter-gatherers tribe in Malaysia, and their sense of smell, it was of course expressed in words. They had a lot of more words for different smells, but their sense of smell was so strong also. So a brother could not sit too close to his sister because it was considered a form of incest to be in your brother's or sister's smell.
Wow, that's interesting, Hannah. And smell does have a different neurobiology to other senses. It's connecting directly to kind of old memory centers and kind of more primitive parts of the brain than other senses. So there is something fundamental, about smell. Like in attraction, it's really important. But at the moment, I'm fasting. I haven't eaten in 3 days. And all of a sudden, my sense of smell has got incredibly sensitive to food. My wife cooked some food in the other room with several doors in between, and I immediately smelled it. And the animal in me was kind of like, food. You need food. Where's the food? It's
torture for you.
Huh?
But in a way, you can also eat the food with your nose in a way you else could not. So it's a different experience. You can see it like that too, of course. Yeah. So the thing is, when we build the world with these representatives, it creates a really, for example, if we have climate change and you have all the politicians meeting in Paris and they're creating a document there, then you have a representation for that something has gone forward.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go out in different places in nature, maybe the effect might not be that big. But the representation is kind of more important today than the real effect.
Yeah. And you guys, my sense there is you like the real, the visceral, the deep, and also the communal, right? It's a kind of strangely communal culture.
Yeah. But also our society is changing too. It was an American friend here who said that when she moved here 20 years ago, there were a lot of people who were not using perfumes.
Mm.
I don't know. Some people might see it's a good thing that people start to use perfumes. But now, I mean, everyone is using some kind of deodorant and perfume. So gradually we go into this this accepted view of society, this the great representation, if we say so, how things are, how they should be, how you should behave. So
could you hit us with some Finnish? Because Finnish is, I think, one of the most beautiful and strange languages. And I'd love listeners to hear it, because most of them will have never heard Finnish. And I'd love you to just kind of tell me what you had for breakfast or where you come from in Finnish, if you're willing to do that.
Yeah. But you have to know that Swedish is my mother tongue.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Excuse me.
No. But I love Finnish. It's it's a very special language. I love to speak Finnish. I love to listen to it, and it's a very flexible language. You can just turn it and toss it and do anything with it. So it's very special and very ancient too.
And it's very different, isn't it? In that Swedish still has lots of North European roots. It sounds bits like German and English and cognates, and I can guess some Finnish words like hello, but Finnish is entirely different. I think its nearest neighbor is Hungarian, which is also beautifully strange.
Yeah. And this is also I saw scientists were a little bit concerned about that everything is going also when it comes to research into English.
Yeah, because most Finns speak perfect English. Like my experience, even in any cafe.
A language is not a language only. It's also a way of looking at the world. It's a philosophy. There's a lot of wisdom covered in the language. So when we lose languages, we don't understand what we are losing, because there's a good word for it in Finnish. It's called tiukka people. That's when your beanie is too tight.
Your what is too tight?
Your beanie. Your hat
okay.
is too tight. Then you are a tiukka people.
What does it mean?
Yeah, that you take things too seriously, or you don't see the whole picture. You are kind of screwed. So, and to me, this is a good word for modern society. We think we are so open. We think we are so advanced, but actually we are tightening the screws. We are becoming more and more tiukka people, and in a way, you could say that there is a conflict here. But in a way, you can say that there is also an opening at the same time. Lots of ideas and things and concepts are mixed. But on the other hand, the world there's this very strong aggression also in the world. It's kind of these two are having very, very close combat at the moment. And with aggression, I mean, for example, if you look at the conflicts during the last 100 of years, that the bombings, the destruction, the power for destruction is so, it's so, I don't have words for it. It's so strong. And also in our relation to nature, our power, I mean, we move mountains today. We clog the ocean.
Yeah, we're capable of destruction that was unimaginable in the past.
Yeah. So from a destructive point of view, we can be really proud of ourselves. We're really good at it.
Can we talk about darkness? This occurs to me, there's something that I found there. I went in winter, it was mostly dark. And there's something about the Nordic mindset which is willing to face darkness. And, many of the issues you're talking about are quite dark. And I know it's difficult to face them head on, like climate change or war or destruction. And there's something you're almost kind of amiably facing that, which I really like.
Yeah. It's a strange thing that we have such power to really do good things and also to do not so good things. And then we have these representations again. keep coming back to them because this was like my meditation this morning. So sorry, maybe my head is too filled.
Live is good. Live is good.
Yeah, but I mean, if we talk about science, so science is kind of the new religion as I see it, and science is kind of the thing that is going to save us. But science in the first hand and the applications of science are the things that is creating the trouble. So there you have again like this black and white, these opposites that we just want to see one part of it. We don't see the other part of it.
Yeah. So say more about, I'm not sure if I agree with you here, and that's okay. And can you say a little bit more about why you see science as creating some of these problems?
Well, science created the nuclear bombs. Science created the industries that pollute the world. Science created plastics. Science give us this power to create all these things that are destructive.
Yeah.
And then we turn to science and say, please, can you help us?
And is it not also true that science has created incubators to save babies' lives with that plastic? It's created cancer drugs with that radioactive isotopes. It's created the heat that, warms your house in winter in Finland. I mean, is it not also worth acknowledging the beauty of science before we write it off? And I'm with you on it. It can be used for great evil, and can be a disembodying force. And I just feel like it's really worth acknowledging what we get from it too.
Yeah, I think we need to see both sides of it. If we have our best scientists trying to figure out the best crack point in chips to trick our systems. I mean, so much of science today is just used to boost consumerism and to trick our system. So we think we need more than we actually do. So what I'm trying to say that we need to see both sides. But to give a good example, after the war in the UK, then science looked at poor people, poor living conditions, and they created the health services, and they reduced infant mortality. They did a lot of things, but it was science combined with a political will.
Yeah.
And that's
there was that spirit after World War II of rebuilding. That
so if we cannot combine science with some kind of direction of political will, it's just like a crazy kid running around in the room.
Yeah, the mind is a great servant and a horrible master, and I think science kind of represents the mind in that way.
Exactly. So it can do wonderful things, but it's mostly used to create weapons and destruction in the big scale. But of course, in our normal, like private lives, it has a lot of beautiful things to offer. But we need to bring it in order.
You never did hit us with some Finnish.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can I hear what you had for breakfast in Finnish? I'm aware that I was teasing the listeners with some Finnish, and you said one word in Finnish. I'd love to hear a little bit more.
No, tänä aamuna mä söin omena ja banaani ja sitten mä join vähän teetä ja ehkä siinä nyt kaikki.
No idea what that meant, but it was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I just told the listeners that I was eating an apple and a banana, and I had some tea, and that was about it.
That was about it. Well, it was nice to hear. I once heard an Italian take an American girl's face in his hands, and he started speaking the most beautiful, seductive Italian. And actually, what he was doing was reciting the back of a cornflakes packet. But it just sounded the most seductive thing in the world. So it's the embodiment of language is so critical. It's so critical. I see this when I work with translators a lot. It's really, really critical.
It is. And I've been thinking lately about that, about language too. That I'd like to ask some scientists about this. How has language changed? It might be hard for them to have a sense of it, but during like the dark period that humanity has been in, with so many wars, so much oppression, so much famine, so much diseases for the last 10,000 years, how has this changed our language? Was it softer? Was it more poetical before?
Yeah, and how the structure of it is. And there's definitely something different around, for example, I was just in Hungary, and Hungarian's quite an old language, and so is Lithuanian. I've spent time there. Lithuanian has Sanskrit links. It's really one of the oldest languages around. Wow. And when you hear Lithuanian, it feels different. It feels medievally, and Hungarian feels almost tribal. I was around this fire eating goulash in the woods in Hungary, and everyone was speaking Hungarian around me, and it was like I'd gone back in time. And I just don't have that feeling with French, for example.
I just read that Lithuania was the last pagan nation in Europe.
Yeah, they hold out a while. Hungary still feels pagan, even if it's not. It's there. It's in the land. There's this feeling of and I feel like the land, the people, the history, the language, these things all combined, they're not possible to separate. Like, I only exist as someone in place, living by the sea, from an Irish background, who speaks a certain language, and learning languages has definitely changed me. Like when learning Brazilian Portuguese definitely made me kind of sexier, like in that it's got a horizontal quality to it. It's kind of almost sleazy. It's like, oi, linda, tudo bem, você gostosa. And it's like learning that language. And Russian has made me like a little fiercer. So it's, do you speak Russian as well? I know a lot of Finns do. It's different, right? We have a lot of listeners in Russia.
It is. And when you learn a new language, you also change your body language. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
But in the UK, you have the old Celtic culture too.
Yes, and people don't realize this. It's very close to the surface in the UK. So you'll drive around and you'll see the Stonehenge or the Aylesbury Circles or the white men on the cliffs with the big white penises. I mean, I grew up in a farm village, and in that village, several times a year, we had essentially pagan festivals. So like the Maypole in May is where young maidens dance red ribbons around a great phallic pole. I mean, that's as pagan as it fucking gets. And we'd have the May Day festival, the Harvest Festival. Like it's not far under the surface, even if, all the churches in the UK are built on pagan sites, which is why they all have yew trees or elm trees in the garden. So it's there, and it's a live tradition. If you go to, say, an alternative festival, there'll be sort of 50-50, the kind of Buddhists and the pagans. And and sometimes the authenticity of it I'm not sure about, but it's definitely there in various forms.
Yeah. And in a way, I sometimes have this sense that we are actually mostly recycling things. We have one religion, one that comes after the other, and now we have science, as I say. I don't know. And I mean, in Buddhism, you say that you should meditate to find compassion, and in science, you say that, well, if you are compassionate, it will change the structure in your brain. So that's why you should do it. Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, it feels like we are like recycling ways of saying the same thing.
I'd say yes and no. Like I see it more as an upward spiral rather than a circle, because I definitely see, like we are, if you look at like Steven Pinker's work, for example, we're less violent than we've ever been, even though we have the capacity technologically to be even more violent. Like I see a definite progress towards globalism and awareness and many really positive things. And I see, signs of regression, and I do see circles back round. And, so I think there are ways in which science, for example, is significantly different from the mystical understandings of, say, a tribal group in the Kalahari. So it's like on the one hand, I agree with you, but on the other hand, I do see a movement in a direction of evolution.
Yeah, I'm happy you have different opinions, because I think it's boring when people say. I actually enjoy.
Yeah.
Conservatives. I enjoy liberals, because they're different way, different experiences, different ways of looking at things, and the picture will not be complete without both sides. And that's one of the things I really think is sad today, that people don't listen to each other, because it's interesting to hear how did you come to that conclusion. And also, I think here we come to the science, the brain science, that actually have brought some new insights. I think that people's brains are wired a little bit differently. So your brain maybe makes it natural for you to be a conservative, and another person's brain might make it natural for that person to become a liberal.
Yeah. Trait openness is the kind of key one from psychology tests, and you're basically born with a certain amount of trait openness, and you can change it subtly. Like if you take psychedelic drugs, that will lead to a statistically measurable change in trait openness, but with a few big exceptions like that, it's a pretty stable trait. And that correlates, conscientiousness correlates with conservatism, and trait openness correlates with liberalism. So we justify our politics, and some of it's just like brain chemistry difference that we're born with.
It is, and I mean, this would be like a great takeaway for both religious and political leaders, that we need to create containers for both the conservatives and the liberals. We cannot like crush the other ones, because it does not work that way.
Well, we need each other. They're two wings of a bird as well, because take a tradition like martial arts, you need people who are conservative, who are preserving a tradition, a lineage, and saying, hey, hang on, let's not change everything, because this is really tried and tested. You know, there's a lot of things in our society that are tried and tested, and they've worked well for thousands of years. And then we also need the open-minded kind of people to bring in new stuff and say, hey, but yeah, we can improve this, and let's change it, and let's not just, unquestionably accept things. And that's two different embodiments. It's two different sets of politics. And I think like the challenge is to integrate them in oneself, but you're also going to have a cultural and typological preference, and that's kind of okay. And just team up with the other guys. That's fine.
Yeah. And not feel intimidated by someone else thinking a little bit differently, because that's fun. It's stimulating.
I always thought it's one of the contradictions in some ways of a kind of liberal point of view, is that can you be tolerant of intellectual diversity as well as other kinds of diversity? I think it's the one kind of diversity which is not promoted by the kind of people who love diversity. It's like, okay, well, can we have diversity of opinion? Can we have diversity of view? Like a diversity of perspective? Is that another kind of diversity we can appreciate? Just to kind of sell it to a kind of liberal kind of mindset is like, it's like how diverse. I mean, there's a contradiction in saying I'm really open-minded, but not to you. There's a contradiction there.
Yeah, it's true. And in a way, I'd like to go back to Buddhist philosophy here, where you have the idea of absolute truth, relative truth. And in absolute truth, there is nothing right or wrong. Things just happen.
Yeah.
But in relative truth, there you have rules to make it easier to get along. So that's kind of based on an agreement between people. This is the way we want to organize things, because then we think that everyone or most of us will feel good.
And I think acknowledging your own, say, political point of view, but this could be a view on yoga or anything else, is really helpful in softening the fundamentalism that can come with a point of view. Is going, you know what, actually, like on the absolute level, it doesn't matter. And on the relative level, yeah, we disagree. And I think second point here would be embodied connection really helps in seeing commonality. So it's like, okay, you're a different nationality, a different age, you may have a different political opinion, but from an embodied point of view, we're breathing the same air.
Yeah, and here I really think this relation to your own body can be helpful, because if you see yourself as representations, like I'm my clothes, I'm my ideas, I'm my position, my status, then you are kind of locked into a very unflexible system. But if you can start to sense your own body, what's called interoception also, then you can see that everything is very fleeting. Things, or maybe sensual experiences, sensations, they come and go, and they stay for a while, and then you can just let them slip away. You get this feeling of a process, of a movement, instead of a frozen picture.
Yeah, the sense of impermanence, I think it brings gratitude and grief at the same time, one in each hand. And it simultaneously, it softens like the attachment of like, I'm this, I've got to hold on to this, and this point of view is the only one, because that's all changing anyway. I'm really aware, I feel like tremendous, I'm quite emotional. I feel kind of tremendous sadness as we have this conversation. And I think it's a sort of mourning for kind of how bad things have got in terms of people not listening to each other. And there's also a kind of joy of like, wow, this is a real conversation with some guy I've never met on the other side of the world. And I wanted to acknowledge that, because I don't normally feel quite so touched in these interviews.
These are important things. And these are also the reason why I'm trying to do the things I'm doing, because I have this very, very urgent sense that we need to reconnect with our bodies to see what we are doing and see what we actually want to do. As it is now, we're so much like compensating for the things we don't have. Like
can I ask you to articulate that one more time, because I think it's profound and probably connects to what I love. Why do you do what you do? Just tell me, take as long as you need, but why do you do what you do?
Yeah, just like you said, I feel this happiness of life, but I also feel this sadness of life, that we are not taking care of life. And then just like when people go to war, they make the enemy to a monster. It's easier to kill that enemy. And I feel that we have made nature to some kind of enemy, because we talk about natural resources. We talk about exploiting things, using them for our benefit. We don't see that the globe as the earth is a living being. And with living, you can have like a mystical view of it, but you can also see it like scientifically.
Yeah, ecosystems.
That we have rivers like blood vessels. We have all these. When you change something there, it has a profound change somewhere else. So from a scientific perspective, you can see that the the planet is living. In the same way, we also kind of have this distances from ourselves. We look at ourselves as I'm big, I'm small, we don't sense our bodies. We look at ourselves from the outside, through the outside mirror. And then it sort of changes everything we do. It's not based on this ananda feeling they talk about in yoga, this happiness that comes from inside. When you go through representations, you need more all the time. You need new things to happen. You need stimuli. That you don't trust that this comes from yourself, that you are a fantastic, amazing system in yourself. That is totally like if you have food, if you have some clothes, if you have shelter, then everything is just perfect as it is. And if you can have this sense of perfectness more in your life, then we don't have to grab all these things that, I mean, when you go into a shop and you see something very nice, if you look at it from a point of emptiness, if you go into an electronic shop, what you see is something that after 5 years is just garbage.
You know, I'm in long-term sobriety. I've been sober 10 years from drug and alcohol addiction. And what I've seen in that 10 years is a culture of addiction take a deeper hold. And when I feel into the culture of much of the Western world, and I'm quite emotional thinking about this, it feels like when I was a drug addict. It really does. And I'm not just talking about people that say I eat too much chocolate or I'm on my cell phone too much. Like the deep cultural embodied structure of the world feels exactly how it felt to wake up in the morning and reach for a drug or a drink. And it's like I feel like I've had an insight into that because I've kind of clocked it and it almost killed me. And now I kind of just feel that in how everything is done daily.
Yeah. And it's so ingrained. It's like a dream. Like that's the way they said before, that we are sleeping, we are in a maya, we are in an illusion, that this is how it should be. But it's just like a wheel that it's feeding itself with disconnection and disconnection.
Peter, you're a beautiful man. I have loved this. We're moving towards wrap up now. Incredibly, the time is almost upon us. I'm going to have an emotional day. I think I wasn't expecting this first thing in the morning. But this is,
sorry, it was.
No, you're beautiful. You found a wonderful surprise. I love it. So like a couple of little practical things then. So to finish, where can people find you? I'll link to this video I've mentioned. So we didn't go through all 5 stages of the process, so I want to tease people to looking at your video. So I'll link to that. Anywhere else they can find out about you?
Yeah, I have another site too that's called Bodymind Love. So it's bodymindlove.com. And there it's more about embodied yoga. Embodied awakening, you could say. And what I mean by that is that if we go to the Patanjali's, the Yoga Sutras, we have this mystical pratyahara there in the middle. And most people just say it's about withdrawing all the senses. We have to go through it, but it's kind of a little bit unclear what it means. But I think from my personal experience that this is like the crucial step, and this is very close to what is called interoception. That this is the step where your world settles down, your traumas maybe settles down, so you can start to sense yourself. And from that self-sensing, you can go deeper into the coming stages in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, where you can go deeper into meditation, you can go deeper into beingness. So if we don't stop and let this happen, this sensing of ourselves, and there's lots of layers that needs to be melted down, mental and also bodily layers, how we perceive things. But if we let that happen, because mostly it happens just by letting it happen, so then we can sort of take yoga or embodiment, hopefully to a new level of deepness and integration.
The deep dark going in from Finland. What a nice way to wrap up. Excuse my Finnish obsession. I have a love affair slightly with Finland, and
that's beautiful.
I just really like to appreciate different cultures, and that's what I super appreciate. And I appreciate that you also got the Swedish side. So to finish, what's your closing message about the body to all our listeners?
Look at how people are moving. When you go outside, look at people from the back, not from the front. Don't care about what they have clothes, how they look, if they're young or beautiful or old and beautiful or something else. Look at how they are moving. Are they in their bodies? Are they not in their bodies? Where are they stuck? In their chest, in their hips, in the neck? Can you see this cloud of thoughts around them? Or are they like appreciating things around them? Do they see the flowers in the park? Or are they just busy going somewhere else? This is one of my hobbies, actually, to just watch people. How they move.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So this was a real joy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
subscribe to get more. And you can also leave us a review on iTunes, which helps with our rankings. So really appreciate that. Equally, if you want to support the podcast even more, then fund us. Go to Patreon, give us $1 per episode. Those who don't know, Patreon's a really good way of supporting things you want to see more of in the world. I know like so much is available for free now, and you know what I'd say is a lot of energy and effort goes into this podcast. I put it out there for free so everyone can get it. You know, Maud and I work on this. Everyone that wants it can have it for free. And if you want to support us, it is really appreciated. So it's patreon.com/Mark Walsh. And of course, if you want any in-person training, you can visit embodiedfacilitator.com. There's loads more resources there too.
Till next time, welcome home to the body.